one of my cats runs into this thing, I apologize. Welcome, everybody, to Blueleaf Banter, a virtual panel where we will chat with some of our industry leaders to get their take on relevant and buzzworthy topics in today's healthcare environment. I am your host, Jesse Vogel, a client service director and a portfolio partner at Bluetree. And today we have a topic ripe with all of the juicy buzzwords. This is improved denials management through analytics, machine learning, and automation. Wowzers. But you're not here to listen to me talk about it. You want to hear from our experts. So let me hand it first over to Adi and we'll do some introductions.
Hi, my name is Adi Vedula. I am a senior consultant with Bluetree. My background is as a software developer at Epic, and I've been working in the EMR space for about 15 years, focusing on rev cycle management and denials lately.
Hi, my name is Austin Brandt. I'm the managing director of our revenue cycle transformation portfolio here at Bluetree. I've been working in the revenue cycle, EMR, and consulting space for about the past decade plus here, and really the past 6 years here at Bluetree. And I work with all of our organizations and all of our consultants to drive change and make an impact with some specific revenue cycle areas.
I'm John Isom. I'm the manager of our revenue cycle analytics team here at Bluetree. I've been working in the analytics space for the last 10 years and specifically in healthcare analytics for the last 6, and have really focused on denials and write-off analytics here recently.
Thanks, guys. So let's do what Bluetree does. Let's break down some of these buzzwords and try to tackle them or look at them through a lens of some practical and actionable solutions. So first up, analytics and data-driven decision making. Are those things actually happening? And what's the Bluetree solution for really solving these problems and incorporating data into the revenue cycle?
So I think analytics and data-driven decision-making have come up in almost every conversation I've had recently. What I've noticed is that organizations are falling into one of 2 categories. They either have no analytics incorporated into their revenue cycle, or they have way too much. They're drowning in data, and that's never a good thing. Our approach at Bluetree begins with establishing solid operational analytics, whether that be an Epic or in a business intelligence tool. We typically start by providing guidance on KPI you need to monitor. We help you establish a clear definition and benchmarks for those KPI, and then give you the ability to see that information from the organizational level all the way down into line level details. We understand that every organization is working with limited time and resources, and our approach helps you quickly spot the areas where you need to focus your efforts.
John, I really like what you're hitting on there with the KPI management and getting those benchmarks and having those clear definitions. What we really see that as is creating a strong foundation for what we would consider more of your operational analytics, right? So at the analyst level, at your managers, you need to have this foundation where people can actually kind of roll their sleeves up, get to understand the data that is affecting their business and be able to really start peeling back different layers and trying to understand what's happening in their business and trying to drive decisions from there. So that's an awesome foundation that we do a lot of work in. From there, though, Jesse, you're asking about kind of how we apply this more broadly in the revenue cycle. That's the foundation that we build on top of to ultimately work towards some of these buzzier concepts that you mentioned, applying real machine learning so that rather than your analysts having to do a lot of the manual work in assessing, actually having and designing these machine learning algorithms that get to that insight for you faster. And then on top of that, automation is what we see as really like the ultimate purpose of data and analytics here, right? So like automation is where we need to go to improve and kind of reduce the cost curve here. But in order to get there, we need to have really strong data that informs us what needs to be done throughout the revenue cycle. So ultimately, starting with operational analytics, we layer on top of that some intelligence, ultimately trying to get us to true automation.
And maybe say a little bit more about that. We talk about automation being the ultimate end goal of this approach to analytics. And, how does it really come into play in a tangible, practical way?
So I saw a very good graphic with 3 concentric circles. The the core being the process, the next layer being the EMR, Epic or whatever your EMR is, and the third layer being your robotic process automation. And that applies whether you're talking about machine learning, robotic process automation, or any other intrinsic automation. What we've done here at Bluetree is we've invested a lot of time into defining what is a denial, which is surprisingly a tough question to answer. And we've defined where it lives in the EMR, what fields, what are the key fields in your medical record that define a denial and the related information and where it lives. So once you define this process, then implementing your downstream things for machine learning or automation, they just become easier. So we've applied a lot of this data after we've defined what denial is into machine learning algorithms that will then either predict your denial or predict whether something is recoverable after you received a denial. There's a different approach, which is equally valid, is rather than using machine learning, you can use just rules-based logic to classify your denials. This is already being used in a young fashion, if you will, using Epic's rules-based claim edits, DNB edits, and follow-up work queue rules. But we've just expanded on that data set to define your denials and how to classify them and which ones are better to follow up on. The key, whether you're using machine learning or rules-based logic, is the prediction, right? Is this something worth following up on, or is this worth preventing? Is this worth intervening on before the claim goes out the door? Once you've come up with this insight, you can use any third-party tool or native tool. So you can use any automation tools within your EMR, or you can use a third party like UiPath or Automation Anywhere to do this robotic process automation, or you can use a combination of your EMR, your interfaces, and your RPA to speed up this whole process.
I love that level of detail and the logic. I mean, the data's got to tell the story, right? Or you got to figure out how to tell a story with the data and get to those key insights before you start worrying about the automation part of it, because you don't want to automate something that's not working properly in the first place. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So for organizations, healthcare organizations that don't know where to start with this, maybe they've never done much work in automation, but they're interested in doing it because they suspect or have heard a lot about the potential efficiency that they could get there, or they haven't dipped their toes into the water of true data intelligence. Where do you recommend a healthcare organization start and focus on?
I would start with the process. Just focus on the process and what's possible within the EMR. Make sure actions and information is being captured very reliably within your primary database. Once you have that, then all the downstream processes, anything you want to apply against it later on, becomes easier. You don't want to carry what is called technical debt in software development to your downstream processes, where the next step you're taking, you now have to start thinking about all the errors that could have happened earlier. So you want to get that foundational information in your database as solid as possible.
Yeah, I love that term, technical debt. I think that's perfect. And completely agree. Bad data in always means bad data out. But this is something we can definitely help with, though. We have experts who know how to set up an EMR to get you that reliable data for your downstream processes. And for denials, as an example, I mean, I would say almost every client we work with have significant gaps in their workflows that lead to issues when you start developing analytics in this space in particular, or for any in the revenue cycle. Simple things like making sure all your denial codes are categorized appropriately, or that you're recording a root cause during your research. I mean, this can really help you tell the full story and pinpoint where your problems are coming from later on. Another thing I think that is often overlooked is establishing some form of cross-functional accountability groups where you're letting analytics drive your conversations. Some of our biggest success stories have come from clients where members from their revenue cycle and IT teams are meeting frequently with clinicians and service line leaders. If you have all parties in the room, have pointed conversations that are data driven, you can actually drive change and fix your problems. Let's say you uncover an issue with write-offs. If you don't have your IT team there, your clinicians there, you're never going to be able to put technical solutions in place to fix upstream issues that are leading to these really troublesome problems like denials and write-offs.
And that just applies and resonates for everything, John. I mean, and Adi too, like what you guys are hitting on here, it really rolls up to just strong governance across the board. You know, when you bring in these different groups, you're able to see the problem that you're trying to address from these different lenses. Like if you are just addressing analytics, if you're just addressing automation from, for example, just like a purely IT angle, you may not see what the actual business need is. You may not see, okay, if we're trying to automate denials, maybe you're not looking at whether we are actually appropriately addressing those root causes that you mentioned through the process itself. Like you got to have everyone at the table. And as we talk about automation governance, we kind of frame this as a center of excellence. We have to have the automation development piece. You got to have the business stakeholders to be driving what the change needs to be. You got to have your EMR at the table. And from there, you need to start building out what are our goals as an organization? What are we trying to achieve? You know, we've talked a lot about denials because a lot of organizations have goals around, you know, accelerating cash or you know, improving or reducing denial rates, you know, lots of different factors, write-off reduction, but maybe that's not right for your organization, right? Like, so you have to establish what those goals are and then build the process improvements, build the automation to actually support those.
I mean, I think inside of this, what I'm hearing is that this is a discipline, right? This is a multifaceted discipline, and it's not something that comes natural to a lot of organizations, and it's not the simplest thing, and it's not something I guess I would expect organizations that are so focused on patient care to just naturally be good at. I mean, because there are a lot of moving parts here, and I think that's where we can help. I mean, that's where the different disciplines within Bluetree, whether it's our analytics folks, whether it's our revenue cycle transformation folks, getting our clinical optimization team involved in some cases, where we can really help in a holistic way, along with some of our technology partners. I think that's great discussion, and appreciate you guys lending your expertise for a few minutes here today. Anybody out there, if this resonates, if this is something you're interested in, let us know. Reach out to your contacts at Bluetree, whether that's your client service folks, your delivery folks. Let us know. Send us an email. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, guys.